The clock on the wall showed to 17 a.m. when Dr. Kim Tae-ho pushed open the heavy glass doors of Harvard's quantum mechanics building. The hallways were dark and quiet, with only the soft hum of fluorescent lights breaking the silence. His footsteps echoed off the polished floors as he walked toward his office on the third floor. Tae-ho had been teaching physics at Harvard for 15 years, but tonight was different. He had left his important research files on his desk, and tomorrow's meeting with the university board could not wait. The files contained months of work on interdimensional field equations that his best graduate students had been struggling to solve. As he climbed the stairs, Tae-ho thought about the problems his team faced. These equations were not ordinary math problems. They dealt with how space and time could bend and twist in ways that most people could never imagine, even his brightest PhD students, who had studied physics for years, could not find the right answers. The third floor was completely dark except for one room. Laboratory 7 had a thin line of light bleeding from under its door. Tae-ho stopped and frowned. Nobody should be in the building at this hour. The cleaning staff usually finished their work by midnight, and all the students had gone home hours ago. He approached the door slowly and listened. He could hear the soft scratching sound of a marker on a whiteboard. Someone was writing equations. Tae-ho's heart began to beat faster. Was someone trying to steal his research? He had heard stories of corporate spies breaking into university labs to steal important scientific work. He turned the door handle carefully and pushed it open just a crack. What he saw inside made him forget to breathe. A young woman stood in front of the massive whiteboard that covered the entire back wall of the laboratory. She was wearing a simple blue cleaning uniform with her long black hair tied back in a ponytail. In her hand was a red marker, and she was writing complex mathematical equations with quick, confident strokes. But these were not just any equations. Tae-ho recognized them immediately. They were the same interdimensional field problems that had been keeping his research team awake at night for 3 months. The same problems that had no known solutions. The young woman stepped back from the board and looked at her work. She tilted her head to one side, as if listening to music that only she could hear. Then she moved forward again and added another line of mathematical symbols. Each symbol was perfect, written with the careful hand of someone who truly understood what they meant. Tae-ho pushed the door open wider and stepped into the room. The young woman spun round, her eyes wide with surprise and fear. She was very young, probably no more than 19 years old, with kind eyes and a gentle face. "How did you?" Tae-ho began. But the words died in his throat. He was staring at the whiteboard behind her, and what he saw there made his mind reel with shock. The equations were not just correct. They were brilliant. They were solutions to problems that the smartest people in the world had been trying to solve. But more than that, they were elegant and beautiful in a way that only the most gifted mathematicians could achieve. The young woman dropped her marker, and it clattered to the floor. Fear flashed across her face like lightning. "I'm sorry, Professor," she said in a small voice. "I know I shouldn't be here. I've been watching the lectures through the window. During my night shifts," she pointed to the large window that looked out onto the classroom next door. "I work as a custodian here," she continued. "I clean these rooms every night, and sometimes when the professors are teaching late classes, I watch and listen. I found old textbooks in the trash cans, and I taught myself to read them." Tae-ho looked at her, then at the whiteboard, then back at her. His mind was trying to process what he was seeing. But it seemed impossible. This young woman, this night custodian, had solved mathematical problems that had stumped Harvard's brightest minds. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Lee So-min," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "So-min," Tae-ho repeated. He walked closer to the whiteboard, studying the equations more carefully. Each step was perfect, each logical leap was flawless. The work showed a deep understanding of concepts that usually took years of advanced study to master. "These equations are correct," he whispered, amazement replacing the anger he had expected to feel. "All of them." He turned to look at her again. "How long have you been working on these problems?" So-min looked down at her feet. "About 2 weeks," she said. "I saw Professor Williams teaching them to his graduate students. They seemed to be having trouble. So I thought I would try to help." Taiho felt his legs grow weak. 2 weeks. His team of PhD students had been working on these problems for 3 months. And this young woman had solved them in 2 weeks, while working as a janitor and teaching herself from thrown-away textbook. Yes, he realized he was witnessing something extraordinary, something that would change everything. The next morning, Dr. Kim Taiho sat in his office with a cup of coffee growing cold in his hands. He had not slept all night. His mind kept returning to the young woman he had found in Laboratory 7 and the incredible equation she had written on the whiteboard. Most professors would have reported So-min to security for being in a restricted area of hours. They would have had her fired from her cleaning job and banned from the building. But Taiho could not stop thinking about those perfect mathematical solutions. He had never seen anything like them. He picked up his phone and called the Human Resources Department. "I need to speak with someone about our custodial staff," he said, specifically Lee So-min, who works the night shift in the physics building. 20 minutes later, he had all the information he needed. So-min was 19 years old and had been working at Harvard for 8 months. She had applied for the job right after finishing high school. Her supervisor said she was quiet, hardworking, and always finished her duties early. Taiho made a decision that would change both their lives. That evening, he waited for So-min in Laboratory 7. She arrived at her usual time, pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies. When she saw him sitting at one of the desks, she froze in the doorway. "Professor Kim," she said nervously, "I promise I won't touch the whiteboards anymore. I'll just clean and leave. Sit down." "So-min," Taiho said gently, "I want to talk too." "You..." She sat on the edge of a chair, ready to run if needed. Taiho opened a folder and pulled out some papers. "I've arranged for you to audit some advanced mathematics courses," he said. "You can attend lectures during your free time. No one needs to know you're not a regular student." So-min's eyes grew wide. "But I'm just a janitor," she whispered. "I don't belong in those classrooms. You belong wherever your mind can take you," Taiho replied, "and your mind is extraordinary." The first class So-min attended was Professor Park Ji-woo's theoretical physics seminar. Park was known for being strict and demanding. His students were all graduate students who had been studying physics for years. When So-min walked into the classroom wearing her simple clothes and carrying a notebook she had bought at the campus store, several students stared at her. She found an empty seat in the back and tried to make herself invisible. Professor Park noticed her immediately. After class, he pulled Taiho aside in the hallway. "Who is that girl in my seminar?" he demanded. "She doesn't look like one of our graduate students. She's auditing the class," Taiho said carefully. "Give her a chance." Park frowned. "My seminars are for serious students only. I don't have time to babysit someone who's just curious about physics." The next week, Park decided to test So-min. He presented the class with a dimensional paradox that had puzzled physicists for decades. It was the kind of problem that even his best students struggled with for weeks. "Can anyone suggest an approach to this problem?" Park asked. Looking round the room, the graduate students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had seen this problem before and knew how difficult It was. Some tried to offer partial solutions, but none could find a complete answer. Then So-min raised her hand quietly. Park looked surprised. Yes. So-min stood up slowly. May I use the whiteboard? She asked. Park nodded, curious to see what she would do. So-min walked to the front of the class and picked up a marker. She began writing equations, but not in the way the other students expected. Instead of following the traditional mathematical approach that they had all learned. So-min started with something completely different. She drew a simple diagram that looked almost like a piece of art. Then she began adding mathematical symbols around it. The graduate students watched in confusion at first. This was not how they had been taught to solve physics problems, but as So-min continued writing, something amazing began to happen. Her approach was working. She was finding connections between different parts of the problem that no one else had seen. She was taking shortcuts through the mathematical space that cut directly to the heart of the paradox. In 15 minutes, she had solved a problem that had stunned physicists for years. Professor Park stood frozen at the back of the classroom. His mouth was slightly open, and his eyes were fixed on the whiteboard. The graduate students sat in complete silence, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. That's correct, Park whispered finally. But how did you know to start with that diagram? So-min turned to face the class. I could see the pattern. She said simply, sometimes the traditional way takes too long. There are shorter paths if you know where to look after class. Park found Taiho in his office. Who is she really? He asked. Taiho smiled. She's our night custodian. But more importantly, she's a genius. She sees patterns we miss. Taiho confided to his colleague. While we follow traditional proofs step by step, she finds shortcuts through mathematical space itself. She approaches problems like an artist approaches a painting. Word about So-min spread quietly through the physics department. Other professors began inviting her to their advanced seminars. She continued working her night job, cleaning the same laboratories where she now studied during the day. Within weeks, her insights were being quietly incorporated into Harvard's most advanced research projects. Graduate students who had once stared at her with confusion now sought her help with their most difficult problems. So-min had found her place in a world she had only dreamed of entering. The news reached Harvard on a Tuesday morning in October. Dr. Kim Tae-ho was drinking his morning coffee when his phone rang with an urgent call from his colleague at MIT. Turn on the news right now, the voice said excitedly. SETI just announced something incredible. Tae-ho grabbed the remote and switched on the television in his office. The news anchor was speaking in a serious tone, while images of radio telescopes filled the screen. The Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence program has detected what appears to be an artificial signal from deep space, the anchor said. The signal was first picked up 3 days ago by the Arecibo Observatory and has since been confirmed by radio telescopes round T. He whirled. Tae-ho felt his heart begin to race. After decades of searching, had humanity finally received a message from another civilization? The signal was unlike anything scientists had ever seen before. It was not random noise from space, nor was it any natural phenomenon they could identify instead. It was a complex sequence of mathematical patterns that repeated every 12 hours. Within hours, the world's best cryptographers, mathematicians, and computer scientists were working together to decode the message. Teams from NASA, MIT, Cambridge, and dozens of other institutions analyzed every aspect of the signal. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The brightest minds on Earth tried every possible approach to understand the alien message. They used the most powerful computers and the most advanced decoding techniques. Nothing worked. The signal remained a mystery. So-min first heard about the signal during one of Professor Park's seminars. He mentioned it casually while discussing communication theory, not expecting any of his students to have insights that the world's experts had missed. The SETI signal is fascinating, Park said, but after 4 months of analysis, no one has been able to determine what it means. It may simply be too alien for us to understand. That evening, So-min finished her cleaning duties early and went to the computer lab. She had been thinking about the signal all day, and something about it felt familiar. She downloaded the raw data that SETI had made available to researchers around the world. For the next 3 days, So-min barely slept. She worked through her night shifts, then hurried home to her small apartment to study the signal. Her neighbors could see the light in her window burning bright until dawn. The signal was indeed complex, but So-min began to see something that others had missed. While everyone else was trying to decode it like a secret message, she realized it might be something entirely different. On the 3rd night, she made the breakthrough. The signal was not a code at all. It was a mathematical proof, a beautiful, elegant demonstration of principles that human science was only beginning to understand. More specifically, it was showing how space and time could be folded to allow faster-than-light travel. But that was not all. Embedded within the mathematical proof were precise stellar coordinates, the location of a star system exactly 47 light-years from Earth. So-min printed out her analysis and took it to Dr. Kim the next morning. Her hands were shaking as she placed the papers on his desk. "I think I know what the signal means," she said quietly. Taiho looked at her work for 7 whole minutes without speaking. His expression grew more amazed with each page he read. Finally, he looked up at her with wide eyes. "Are you certain about this?" he asked. "Yes," So-min replied. "It's an invitation. They're showing us they understand advanced mathematics, and they're giving us a meeting place." Within hours, Taiho had contacted his colleagues at MET, NASA, and SETI. So-min found herself in a conference room filled with the world's leading scientists, explaining her discovery to people who had been studying the signal for months. "The sequence isn't random," she told the assembled experts. "It's a proof of faster-than-light travel principles. See how these numbers relate to space-time curvature. And here, embedded in the mathematical structure, our precise coordinates for the Kepler 442 system." Dr. Sarah Chen from NASA studied So-min's analysis carefully. "This is remarkable," she said finally. "We've been approaching this all wrong. We were looking for a message, but it's actually a demonstration of scientific knowledge." "And an invitation," added Dr. Martinez from SETI. "If these beings can manipulate space-time in the way this proof suggests, they could travel to the coordinates they've provided." The news of So-min's breakthrough spread round the world within hours. The young woman who had been cleaning Harvard's laboratories just months earlier was suddenly the most famous person on Earth. Television crews gathered outside her apartment building. Scientists from every major university wanted to interview her. Government officials from dozens of countries called Harvard asking to speak with her. "How did a janitor solve what the world's best scientists could not?" asked one reporter. "She sees patterns differently than the rest of us," Dr. Kim explained to the media. "Well, we were thinking inside the box of conventional cryptography." She was thinking like a mathematician and an artist. So-min herself remained quiet during most of the interviews. She was overwhelmed by the sudden attention and struggled to understand how her life had changed so completely. "I just looked at the numbers," she said simply when asked to explain her success. "Sometimes the answer is hiding in plain sight. You just need to know how to look." The world waited anxiously to see what would happen next. If So-min was right, Humanity was about to make contact with an alien civilization that possessed technology beyond their wildest dreams, 6 months after So-Min decoded the alien signal. Every major space agency on Earth was watching the skies. Telescopes pointed toward the Kepler 442 system, waiting for something that might change human history forever. So-Min had calculated that if the aliens could travel at the speed suggested by their mathematical proof, they would arrive on a specific date, March 15th, at exactly 3:47 p.m. Eastern Time. The world held its breath. At 3:46 p.m., radar stations round the globe detected something impossible. A massive object had appeared in Earth's solar system, near the orbit of Mars. It had not traveled there through normal space. It had simply materialized, as if folding space and time round itself. The alien ship was unlike anything humans had ever imagined. It was 3 kilometers long and shaped like a crystal, with surfaces that seemed to bend light in strange ways. It moved silently through space, approaching Earth at a steady pace. World leaders gathered in emergency sessions. Military forces were put on high alert. Scientists worked frantically to establish communication protocols, but everyone knew that humanity's first contact with an alien civilization would likely depend on one person. Lee So-Min. So-Min was no longer the quiet night janitor she had been a year earlier. She was now a special advisor to the United Nations, and had been given access to the most advanced communication equipment on Earth. But despite her new status, she still felt like the same young woman who had once cleaned laboratory floors. The alien ship took position in Earth's orbit and sent a single transmission. It was another mathematical sequence, similar to the original signal but much more complex. Within hours, So-Min had decoded its meaning. "We are here to meet the one who understood our message." 3 days later, the alien sent a smaller ship to Earth's surface. It landed in a carefully chosen location in the Nevada desert, far from populated areas but close enough to major cities for easy access. The first humans to meet the aliens were a carefully selected team of diplomats, scientists, and military officials. So-Min was among them. Wearing a simple blue dress and carrying a notebook filled with mathematical equations, the aliens emerged from their ship like living sculptures made of crystal and light. They were tall, at least 3 meters high, with bodies that seemed to be made of some kind of transparent material that glowed softly from within. They moved gracefully, almost floating across the desert sand. The lead alien approached the human delegation. When it spoke, its voice came not as sound, but as mathematical symbols that appeared in the air like glowing text. "We are the Velta," the symbols read. "We have traveled far to meet the primitive species that detected our signal." The human diplomats tried to respond, but their carefully prepared speeches seemed inadequate. The aliens showed no interest in Earth's political leaders or military commanders. Their glowing eyes passed over the delegation with what seemed like disappointment. "Your technology is crude," the alien leader continued. "Your science is elementary. We expected more from a species that could decode our mathematical proof." Then the lead alien noticed So-Min standing quietly at the back of the group. Its crystalline body seemed to pulse with brighter light as it approached her. It said, the mathematical symbols appearing directly in front of So-Min. "You are the one who understood our message." So-Min stepped forward, her notebook in her hands. She was nervous, but not afraid. "Yes," she said simply. "I solved your proof." The alien's body flickered with what might have been surprise. "Show." "US." It commanded. So-Min opened her notebook and began writing equations in the desert sand with a stick. But these were not the same equations the aliens had sent. These were her own improvements to their original proof. Modifications that made their faster-than-light travel theory even more elegant and efficient. The other aliens gathered around, their crystalline bodies pulsing with increasing brightness as they studied Soman's work. The lead alien, who called itself Chrysivil, stared at the equations for a long time. Impossible. Chrysivil finally communicated. These modifications, our own scientists did not see these. Connections. Somin looked up from her work. Your original proof was beautiful, she said. But there were patterns within the patterns, shortcuts that could make the process more efficient. For the first time since their arrival, the aliens seemed truly interested in humanity. Chrysivil knelt down in the sand to study Soman's equations more closely. How did you see what we missed? It asked. I don't know. Somin replied honestly. I just see things differently. My professors say I find shortcuts through mathematical space. Over the following days, Somin worked directly with the alien scientists. She served as humanity's translator. Not just of language, but of mathematical concepts. The aliens communicated entirely through mathematical notation, and Somin was the only human who could truly understand their complex thoughts through her translations. Humanity learned that the Velta had been traveling the galaxy for thousands of years, searching for other intelligent species. Most civilizations they encountered were too primitive to understand advanced mathematics. Others were advanced but had lost the ability to see mathematical beauty. Your kind possesses a rare gift, Chrysivil told Somin during one of their sessions. The ability to find beauty in chaos, to see order where others see randomness. This is not common in the universe. Somin became the bridge between two completely different ways of thinking. The aliens valued pure logic and mathematical perfection. Humans valued intuition and creative leaps. Somin could understand both approaches and translate between them. Most species either develop pure logic or pure intuition, Chrysivil explained. Few can combine both. You represent the best of what your species can become. 1 year had passed since first contact with the Velta, and Somin's life had changed in ways she could never have imagined. She was no longer the quiet young woman who cleaned laboratory floors at night. Now she stood in the most important room in the galaxy, representing all of humanity. The Galactic Council chamber was unlike anything on Earth. It floated in space between 3 stars. Its walls made of a material that was completely transparent. Somin could see the cosmos stretching endlessly in all directions round her. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. 40-7 different alien species sat in a great circle round the chamber. Each species looked completely different from the others. Some were made of crystal like the Velta. Others looked like living metal or flowing water. A few appeared to be made of pure energy, glowing like small suns. Min sat in a simple chair at the center of the circle, wearing the same blue dress she had worn during first contact. In her hands was her old notebook, now filled with mathematical discoveries that had amazed scientists across the galaxy. She felt very small and very human in this place of cosmic importance. Chrysivil, the Velta leader who had become her closest alien friend, stood to address the council. Its crystalline body glowed brighter as it began to speak through mathematical symbols that appeared in the air. We gather today to consider humanity's application to join our confederation. Chrysivil announced, this species is young and their technology is primitive. Their planet has known war, pollution, and inequality. By our usual standards, they would not qualify for membership. Somin felt her heart sink. Were the aliens going to reject humanity after all? But Chrysivil continued, however, we nominate humanity not for their current technology or their past achievements. We nominate them for their potential. In Somin, we see what makes this species unique. They have the capacity for a brilliance to emerge from any circumstance, in any individual. A representative from the Zephyrians, a species that looked like living wind, responded with swirling patterns of light. This human solved our mathematical puzzles in ways our own scientists had not considered, but she is only one individual. How do we know her abilities represent her entire species? So Min stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent as all 47 species turned their attention to her. She had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, her hands were shaking. Honored members of the council. She began, her voice small but clear in the vast chamber. I know I am just one person. I know my planet has problems. I know we are not as advanced as any of you. She paused and looked round the circle of alien representatives. But I am not special because I am different from other humans. I am special because I'm exactly like them. Every human has the potential to see patterns, to solve problems, to create beauty from chaos, a representative from the quantum collective, beings made of pure mathematics, flickered with interest. Explain this claim. Their symbols demanded Min, opened her notebook on my planet. There are millions of people like me, people working in factories, cleaning buildings, farming fields, driving trucks, people who have never had the chance to study advanced mathematics or science. But they all have minds capable of extraordinary things. She showed the council a page from her notebook. This equation came to me while I was mopping floors. This breakthrough happened while I was taking out trash. I discovered these patterns while washing windows. My environment did not limit my thinking. It inspired it. The chamber was completely quiet now. Even the energy beings had stopped their constant flickering. I learned mathematics from textbooks thrown in the garbage. So Min continued. I attended lectures by looking through windows. I solved problems using markers stolen from supply closets. If I can do this, imagine what humans could accomplish if they all had proper opportunities. She closed her notebook and looked directly at each alien representative. You see only one human today, but I represent billions of potential geniuses who are waiting for their chance. Humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our knowledge. It is our diversity. We are a species where extraordinary ability can emerge from the most unexpected places. The Velta began to glow more brightly, a sign of excitement among their species. Other representatives were communicating rapidly among themselves through lights, sounds, and mathematical symbols. The leader of the council, an ancient being called the Prime Consciousness, finally spoke. Its voice came as pure thought that all species could understand. The human makes a compelling argument, it said, but this is an unprecedented situation. We have never admitted a species based on potential rather than proven achievement. Crucible stood. Again, perhaps it is time for unprecedented decisions. It said, this young human has already contributed more to galactic mathematics in 1 year than some species have in centuries. If one untrained human can accomplish this, what might their entire species achieve with proper guidance? The vote was taken in the ancient way of the council. Each species would cast their decision into the cosmic void, and the stars themselves would count the results. One by one, the representatives voted. So men watched as points of light appeared in the space above the chamber. Green lights meant yes, red lights meant no. The first light was green, then another, and another. When the counting was finished, 47 green lights floated in the darkness above them. The vote was unanimous. Humanity had been accepted into the Confederation of Intelligent Species. As the chamber erupted in celebration, So Min thought about her journey 2 years ago. She had been invisible, cleaning floors while dreaming of a better life. Now she was humanity's ambassador to the galaxy. But more importantly, she knew this was just the beginning. Somewhere on Earth, other young people were looking up at the stars and dreaming their own impossible dreams. And now, thanks to humanity's acceptance into the galactic community, those dreams might actually come true. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter as humanity took its place among the cosmos. The end.